Bonjour, and welcome to episode 12 of the Motivational Millennial Podcast.
Hola!
Did you like that? Guten Tag! Today we had a great conversation coming up for you with Robin Zander. Robin is an amazing dancer, entrepreneur, and just all-around learner and high-performance mastermind. I met Robin through this healthcare and innovation conference that he was programming, and he asked me to come and teach some beatboxing to healthcare professionals, and then I got to see him teach people how to do handstands. So he's a very talented guy, fascinating interview, and I hope you enjoy it. Stick around for the after show when Ivy and I share some of our biggest takeaways, and let's get going.
All right.
Hello, welcome to the Motivational Millennial Podcast, where we talk with inspiring members of the millennial generation who are living life with a sense of purpose and achieving their dreams. I'm Blake Brandis.
And I'm Ivy LeClaire.
Our motivational millennial guest today is Robin Zander. Robin is a best-selling author, educator, and strategist with a diverse background ranging from management consulting to the circus. He's the founder of the Responsive.org conference, which innovates on the future of work, and Robin's Café at ODC, a cafe and gallery in the heart of the Mission District in San Francisco. Robin is also the director of Stanford University's Design for Dance conference, which was founded at the intersection of behavior change and dance. Additionally, through his podcast, The Robin Zander Show, he interviews exceptional performers from areas as diverse as the arts, technology, and healthcare to understand how individuals and organizations can accelerate performance. I actually had the pleasure of being on The Robin Zander Show, and it was a lot of fun. So we said, Robin, come on a Motivational Millennial Podcast. So welcome, Robin. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Pleasure to be on.
Awesome. Well, we'd love to hear more about what you're up to at the moment and why you're so passionate about it.
Yeah, what I'm up to at the moment. I mean, we were joking before we started recording that too often right now I am literally looking at my phone, monitoring my employees at the cafe. I opened up a cafe in the heart of the Mission about 7 weeks ago on 3 weeks' notice. So we took 3 weeks to open a cafe. We've been functioning with a lot of adrenaline for 7-8 weeks now. And so I'm constantly monitoring Square, the app, because that's our point of sale service, just to see how the cafe is doing at any given moment when I'm not on the ground there.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about how you got into running this cafe, because that's a crazy story in itself.
Yeah. So if I were to tell anybody listening, or either of you, how to start up a cafe or restaurant, I mean, I'd probably lead with don't, because there's a lot of easier businesses to run than food service, it turns out. I probably would not suggest doing it in San Francisco because rent is high, minimum wage is high, and food service is expensive. I would not recommend doing it at an arts space where people are wanting $2 for a drip coffee, not $2.50, where the needs financially are very, very tight in a lot of cases. But most of all, I would not recommend doing it in 3 weeks. So 2 years ago, a professor at Stanford, BJ Fogg, gave me ownership of his conference, Design for Dance. In 2013, he founded this conference at the intersection, as you said, of behavior change, visual design, dance, movement, healthcare, sort of looking at what happens when people all over the world start dancing more. And as somebody who has been dancing now for 10 years, since college, and it's really we can talk about it, had a profound impact on my life. As a straight white guy growing up in a pretty rural town, coming into dance really impacted how I view myself and how I show up in the world. BJ and I connected through a random phone call, started chatting. He invited me to be a speaker. 6 months later, he gave me directorship of this conference. A couple months after that, he gave me ownership. We had the conference down in Palo Alto near Stanford's campus last year in 2015. And that was the first time I'd ever done an event like that. The ODC company, which is a major modern dance company in San Francisco, performed at the conference and invited me to host the conference at their theater, which seats about 172 people in San Francisco in the heart of the Mission this year. So we had settled on dates like 8-9 months ago. We're just prepping a couple of the last logistics, and I was sitting down with the person who oversees the building and just talking about lighting and design and catering and what our various needs were. And one of the perks of putting on the conference at ODC's theater is, oh great, there's this beautiful gallery and coffee shop attached that are housed within the building. And so I asked this point of contact of mine, who do I talk to make sure that the cafe knows I have 150 people coming to their cafe for 2 days? And was told in no uncertain terms that the cafe would be closing in approximately 20 days. And mind you, this was less than 30 days out from the start of my conference. So that was April 1. Between April 1 and April 27, I looked at all of the different factors of like, what would it take to start a cafe for 2 days so that I could cater to my attendees? Wait a minute, what would it take to start a cafe properly and keep it running? And I mean, ODC was very generous in working with me, and the former owner of the cafe, who was shutting down for a variety of reasons, was very generous in sort of helping me to learn the ropes and continues to be a mentor. But there were enough pieces to it in the positive that I kept taking little baby steps. Granted, baby steps 20 hours a day, 7 days a week for 20 days, such that on the 26th of April, I signed a new lease with ODC, agreeing to rent the building, or rent the cafe space. On the 27th, we opened for basic operations with like coffee and drinks. And on the 28th and the 29th, we served a full menu to 150 attendees as well as our regulars. We've been running since for the last 7 weeks.
That's so amazing. You're like, I am going to fix this problem in an extravagant way. Yeah. So where are you at now with this? How is it feeling to have, looking back at that just recently?
Yeah.
How are you feeling now?
Someone asked me, I don't remember who or exactly when, right, what is my plan for the cafe? And like, no, I have not always had the dream to own a cafe. I've always wanted space. As a dancer, as somebody who craves physical activity, I always thought I'd have like a gym or a physical gathering space that had a physical component. But as I've been doing more and more events, the cafe tied into ODC's theater, tied into the dance school, it's a community center, right? It's a meeting space. People don't need my permission to meet there because that's what a cafe is for. You come for the coffee, but you stay for the community. I expect Robyns Cafe at ODC to be going strong 8 years from now, 10 years from now.
Wow.
I don't anticipate that I will be the point of contact when there's a fire in the building. A physical fire, hopefully not, right? Metaphorical fire, anything. I don't anticipate the level of attention and adrenaline that I have directed at the project currently. We had 6 or 8 months to plan it out and launch properly. It would be a much more smooth and collected, and like all my permits would be in order rather than like, I spent an hour with the San Francisco Planning Department today applying for tables and chairs permits, right? So it wasn't ideal. And the mission is growing and changing so much. I've lived within 10 minutes walk of this same location for 10 years now. It has the potential to be, and I'm already seeing it, where people are coming forward and saying, okay, the energy in this cafe is so different. We're so excited for what you're building here. Every day I come in and I'm a regular and I get coffee every morning and there's something new every single day. This is incredible. Thank you for doing this because the community needs it. That's what I was responding to. So, I mean, probably one of the things we'll talk about is building businesses. There's this emphasis that I think is a little overrated on entrepreneurship right now, particularly among millennials, of like, oh, you ought to go build businesses. We were talking again before the podcast, a friend of mine, Derek Sivers, a fellow I've had on my podcast, and he says you shouldn't build businesses unless people are asking you for them. I would add to that, you shouldn't build businesses unless there's at least a 3-way win, right? So ODC got their cafe up and running very quickly. The people who had been coming to the previous cafe get to keep coming to the cafe. I now own a business. I have baristas who have jobs, right? I get to hire from the ODC community, from dancers. So that's like at least a 5-point win just right there. That's 5 different parties that are all winning from this same interaction. It's not that everyone should build a business, but if enough people are asking you for something, probably why you guys have started this podcast, certainly why I started mine. I was having so many of these conversations, and people were like, I would love to be the fly on that wall. I was like, well, okay, we could do that. That's totally achievable.
Yeah.
From your different experiences, management consulting, the design work you've done, the dance work you've done, I'm just trying to understand how different the process of running a cafe must be, or maybe not. I mean, do you see it from your own experience of looking at the kind of things you would look at when you're consulting or when you're dancing? Do you look at the cafe in the same kind of way? Because it seems like a food services establishment's totally left field from a lot of other things you've been doing.
Yeah. It's certainly and more immediately challenging than anything else I've done recently. It's certainly like I'm not paying myself for the running of the cafe at the moment by any stretch. If I just wanted to make money, there's lots of other better ways for me personally to be doing that. What it did was stretch me in a direction that I could very comfortably have lived my whole life and never grown in this way. I'm managing a whole bunch of part-time employees. I'm managing schedules. I'm teaching somebody else, my new GM, to manage schedules. I'm working with vendors, which is something in this way with food service vendors I've never done before. I'm learning the difference between like today ripe banana and a green tip banana, which is not something you know unless you order bananas every day, right? And wait, do you want bananas for banana bread or for consumers to eat day after tomorrow? Because you can order for all of those. You have to know what to ask for. So it is a challenge, and it's a fresh challenge. But it's one that even if this dream of the cafe is operating successfully, mostly without my direct oversight 10 years from now, which I think is totally achievable, there's so many skills that I have been developing, even just learning how to launch a cafe on 3 weeks' notice. How to build a team of baristas and chefs and my GM, and we're talking about pop-up restaurants, all of the factors of the internal team that make up the cafe on short notice, and then continue to keep them engaged, right? Those skills, regardless of the cafe specifically, are skills that I did not have, that I wanted to cultivate, and that will serve me in everything that I do for the rest of my life.
So what are you enjoying most about this whole experience?
It's actually really easy. It's when a customer comes to me and says, this is so different than what was here before, and I'm so excited this is here, and you're in the neighborhood, and you're creating a new space. And when my employee, Raul, comes forward and says, I'm so happy here. Raul, who came to us on the 26th as we were just signing the contract and was like, you're opening a cafe, I need a job, can I help? Right? And it turns out he's a former professional chef, and we're going to run a pop-up restaurant around him. And it's using the team who I find myself with to build on their strengths and to build something that is much, much bigger than I could do by myself. Or Monty, my new GM, when he says, Robin, the last month at the cafe has literally changed my life. Right? Because I'm giving him responsibility. I'm asking him to show up. I'm expecting him. He says he wants to be the GM. And so I say, okay, this is what that means. Can you do that? And he says, yes. And he might stumble and fall, but he gets back up and he tries again. And me holding him accountable to what he says he wants is a level of responsibility that I don't know that he's ever had before. Right? And so when he comes to me and says, not because I asked, but because he just had it within him, this is so meaningful to me. To have more responsibility, to step up, to be learning so much. And sure, he's scared, but he's willing to try. Those moments that change people's lives is why I'm doing the cafe and is what I like so much of it.
And what a gift, too, to him, because I think so often we think of accountability as something negative, right? Accountability is like discipline. So it's that I have to hold you accountable because if I don't, you're not going to do it. But I love your framing. It's a sign of respect, right? I want to hold you to what you said you want. I want to support you to get the thing you want. And I love that. That's really powerful.
Yeah.
And a totally different way to think about management, I think, as a way of supporting people to get what they want. And this is what you said you want. Here's what this requires. I'm going to help you do that. And if you're not quite there, I'm going to show you where you're not.
Right. If it turns out that's not something you want, then fantastic. I wish you well. We're going to part ways. But my job as somebody building this team is to be there in service of my people. In the same way that both of you, I know, think about this podcast is in service to your listeners.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I want to hear more about your dance background. I want to talk about this because what we'll ask next is about a defining moment in your life that got you to this passion. And I feel like you were just told that story about the restaurant because this is the defining moment and it's happened and that's amazing. And I'd love to hear about what brought you to dance.
Why dance? So I guess, first of all, useful to say that I think of dance a little bit more broadly than most people do. If you can name a physical form of training, a form of physical activity, I've probably tried it. So gymnastics and breakdancing and Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and capoeira and contact juggling and regular juggling and fire performance and ballet and modern and jazz. And I'm not world class at most any of these. I'd say I'm maybe top 10% in a couple, right, compared to people who've never tried it. But compared to Olympian gymnasts, like, I am an amateur gymnast, even though San Francisco Opera hired me to perform as a gymnast last year. But there's something that a lot of the whatever successes I've seen so far in my life, and I don't know so many people who are way more successful by whatever measure than I am, that I'm moving, I'm trying. I don't know that I've been successful yet, but I'm certainly striving. But that learning to strive comes directly from my exposure to dance. So my first language, my first form, my first mechanism for progress and performance was movement. It was a liberation for me. So defining moments, there's a handful of them. When a friend of mine named Zephyr, and her chosen name more recently, but a friend of mine from high school known as Zephyr, took me tree climbing in high school. In a very rural high school in Northern California. Like, you don't go climb trees. And it wasn't even a date. It was like, hey, Robin, I'd love to spend time with you. Let's go climb trees. Right? By the way, I built Dreamcatcher Tree Fort out of climbing ropes in these trees. It's like 50 feet up. You want to go explore it with me? And to realize at that point in my life, not having had friends outside of my family for the last couple of years and been probably chronically depressed at that point, here was somebody who, like me, thought that the best possible way you could spend time with somebody you've just met in high school is to go climb trees and, like, hang ropes, right? That led to rock climbing. Actually, broke my ankle rock climbing at 18. That, in turn, the broken ankle led to sort of a wide variety of other physical forms that I started to explore as soon as I possibly could, recovering from the injury, while simultaneously not defining myself exclusively as, like, a specific, I am a dancer or I am a juggler, right? Juggling, again, when a fellow named Jeff Boyette in high school introduced me to 3-ball juggling, or a fellow named Peter in college, my first day at Reed College on campus, I was walking across the quad, and there's this guy with this glass ball moving it across his hands, like David Bowie. What is the movie?
Labyrinth?
Labyrinth, thank you. I've still never seen the movie, but that is what everyone knows with contact juggling. And so that, in turn, led to founding a fire performance troupe. It's interesting, we just celebrated the 10-year anniversary of the fire performance troupe that I co-founded my freshman year of college. I haven't thought about it in 7 years. I haven't thought about it since my junior year of high school, or college, excuse me. But that performance troupe is still strong, has like half of the student body involved, is the biggest fire performance troupe in Portland, Oregon. Something that I started on a whim my freshman year of college, right?
Awesome.
The moment when I landed on my neck on a trampoline my senior year of college and decided that I was not actually going to go train with Cirque du Soleil in Montreal with the École Nationale de Cirque, but instead was going to figure out how to recover, right? That was another defining moment. Any one of these stories, you can ask about them, I'll tell more, but they're all just baby steps, right? Mm-hmm. Without any one of them, would I be where I am? I'd be some variant. But if you were to take most of them away, or 50% of them away, or whatever that is, I have 2 nephews, right? And so watching their motor development. Children don't learn to walk by walking. They learn to walk by laying on their backs and like moving their fingers, and then learning to roll over, and then learning to army crawl, and then learning to regular crawl, and then learning to stand up and fall down, right? And we look for these moments of like, aha, I can point to lots of them. You guys, I'm sure, can point to lots of them, but it's not actually about that. It's what BJ Fogg talks about at Stanford of tiny habits and incremental steps towards behavior change, right? If you want to become the next Tony Robbins or Oprah Winfrey or Tim Ferriss, that doesn't happen overnight. Granted, there's a whole lot of good luck and good timing involved. There's a whole lot of striving and effort. But the only thing you can shoot for today, tomorrow, next year, even 5 years from now is a gradual implementation of small changes based on where you are at this moment.
I think that's such an interesting way to look at it, because I'm wondering how much at the time you were thinking of it as baby steps toward a certain goal versus in hindsight you're saying this was just my passion and it happened to culminate in a ton of baby steps that is my life.
I'd be cautious about the word passion. I don't know what that means.
Okay.
So I've just been thinking about the word passion lately, so let's come back to that. But
okay.
It's not so much, I try and remind myself when I'm feeling overwhelmed, it's okay that I don't know everything about payroll for a cafe today, because baby steps, right? So it's more like a comfort that I try and offer to myself, knowing what I know now. But the key to the baby steps is each of those steps, I didn't know what was going to come. And I'm sure there's 50,000 other decisions that I have made that didn't go anywhere, right? That time that I applied for an internship with Ryan Holiday, the famous marketer, and like never heard anything back. There have been so many of those quote unquote failures, right? Okay, we remember the ones that had a significant impact one way or the other, but it's taking my best guess at any given moment. That moment when I walked onto the modern dance floor for the first time, or walked into my first ballet studio, and I saw these beautiful women with their legs way above their head and the beautifully pointed feet, and I was wearing corduroy, and like said, I don't even know what ballet is, could I like observe the class? My teacher, Eric Skinner, who's an amazing dancer out of Portland, Oregon, said, not only observe, but like take it, right? And I was wearing socks and tank top and corduroy in the middle of winter in Portland, and took a ballet class, not knowing how to dress, not knowing what it was, but something there felt right enough that I kept going back. Right? That then led to 10 years later still dancing today. But the only decision there was, do I have the courage? Because it was just courage. It was just, I'm afraid of this thing, but I'm curious, so I'm going to go try it. And then, does it feel right enough? Does it feel interesting enough? Does it feel like not a no, that I want to come back and try it again? Right? So those baby steps is, I think you're right, are retrospective. Experience in the moment, almost always for me, is one of like, oh, Jesus, that's something I'm afraid of. Let's take a step towards it.
Yeah, it sounds like you've said yes to a lot of things, one after the other. You mentioned you had some thoughts on passion, and I'm curious to what your take on it is.
Yeah. I mentioned Ryan Holiday. He just published a new book called Ego is the Enemy that has just come out, and he talks a lot about the word passion. So that's probably why I've been thinking about it lately. But am I passionate about restaurants? No, but there's a component about, but I love good food. I love service, not food service, but being in service to somebody or something that is bigger than just me, right? And I actually think it's innately wired in humans that humans like to be of service. We can get over our own sort of hang-ups around that. I care passionately, using the word passion, about building teams, right? And all of these things come together around an opportunity that was purchasing the cafe to result in the cafe. But if I were to say, what am I passionate about? Like, passion can be cultivated. I'm passionate about name a thing. I'm sure I can get so excited about handmade paper books, right? Like, having thought zero about how to make custom handmade paper printed books, like, I'm sure I could generate lots of enthusiasm for that. I know I could. But that's not to say that the next thing I ought to learn everything there is to know about is how to handprint books, right? Like, there's the why. I feel like passion can be a justification for a lot of things. Oh, why are you doing that? Well, I'm passionate about it. And like, everyone gets immediate buy-in. It's like, oh, well, of course, you should go do that then. There's not a second questioning or a third questioning. So you're passionate about puppies. Rather than just like, fantastic, go do puppies, right? It's like, oh, what about puppies are you interested in? Not as a criticism, but as a curiosity, right? And this is something we've talked about a little bit before, of the power of asking questions, right? Not questions to criticize, not questions to tell a compelling story, but just questions that get to the heart of why.
Yeah, it's really deepening your understanding. What I love is that you're talking about your ability to be passionate about many different things. In a way, there's a passion for learning and a passion for new experiences that's an underlying, quote-unquote, passion.
Yeah.
Because I totally agree with you in that passion is defined by the individual and can be different for everyone. And there are people out there that know at age 10 what they care about and what they're passionate about, and they work toward that from age 10.
Right.
And those people are amazing. And then there are people who are passionate about something from age 10 to 15 that helped them really grow and learn a lot, and then they're like, actually, or we have a multitude of passions at once.
Sure.
But the piece that you're really speaking to is understanding why you're moving in that direction, understanding why the passion is there, and understanding why it's manifesting in your life in the way that it's manifesting or not.
Right.
And do you want to change that?
And I would never encourage somebody to do something that that they detest.
Right.
I mean, maybe it's useful to try, maybe, as a point of comparison. But the word that came to my mind as you're describing this is purpose, right? Mm-hmm. Passion without purpose, like, that's a dead end, right? You talk about somebody starting Yo-Yo Ma, starting cello at 3, maybe 5. It's not that he was passionate about cello at 3 or 5. It's that he has spent every waking hour and sleeping hour, his entire life, honing his craft, practicing his art form. Is it more important that he was passionate or that he practiced? I think it's probably more important that he practiced. And granted, that came with profound love. Mm-hmm. And if at a certain point he decided that he didn't love cello anymore, like, hopefully he still does, right? But that work ethic, that willingness to double down and put in the effort to make passion into something, because by itself it's not self-justified.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you have a sense of purpose around, maybe it is the learning or the adventure?
Yeah.
What is that for you?
I'm definitely more like what Ivy was saying, the 5 years at a stretch. If you ask me what I'm going to be doing 10 years from now, I might make a joke about, like, running somebody's presidential campaign, but I have no idea. It's my own learning and others' learning. It's more and more moments where somebody comes to me and says, that thing might have even just a side note to you in your life, Robin, or it might have been profound in my life, but it changed this person. Monty coming to me, and that's happened not irregularly. There is almost nothing more important that I have done than those changes in people. And those changes in myself, right? Any one of those moments for me of aha, or of, like, the starting the cafe, right? I've learned so much that will serve me well in the rest of my life. If the whole project evaporated tomorrow, and I hope and pray that it does not, but my ability and confidence to do something similar in the future, where before I had none, is astronomically higher. It's the difference between none and infinite possibility, between 0 and 1, as they say in computer science. So, yeah, again, what am I doing in 10 years? I have no idea. But I'm dedicated to my own learning process, as I often say, perfecting the art of high performance, right? Maximizing performance, maximizing output, whether output is financial or emotional satisfaction or emotional resilience is a phrase I use often. That's probably one of my defining characteristics, or things that I aspire towards, is the ability to rebound, the ability to stand up in the face of fear.
So let's talk about the emotional resilience. What are a couple of the biggest challenges that you faced in your journey thus far, this life path?
That's a good question.
And how did you overcome them? I mean,
For sure. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is 7th grade. I grew up in a town that didn't really know what to make of me and my family. I felt pretty ostracized from my middle school. In 5th and 6th and the first half of 7th grades, I sort of lost all of the peers that I had had up to that point in my life. A longtime neighbor and friend of mine moved out of state, and my peers were going through puberty, and I was a late bloomer, and I was very self-conscious. I remember being called girl a lot. I remember, like, getting egged. I remember, by my science team who had landed the egg and, like, had this big scientific victory, and then my team turned around and threw the egg at me, getting a basketball to the face. Like, these points that were just resulted in, I believed in my own academic and physical prowess. Like, that was the thing that I felt good about. But that was not a thing that anyone in my school, except maybe a couple of teachers, thought well of. You were not popular in school by being nerdy when I was in 7th grade. And so I was deeply and profoundly unhappy. And I don't know what would have happened had I stayed in that state, but it would not have been good. And by good fortune, my parents saw that and pulled me out and offered to homeschool me. And so my fondest memories of those periods are of getting up at 5:30 in the morning and studying algebra with my dad before he went to work, of going to site visits with my dad, who was an environmental consultant, or going to the ocean with my mom and going whale watching, and that was like biology class. And so that stark difference between this, I mean, in middle school, I wore a black, to this day, I never wear black hoods, like hoodies, because all I ever wore for 2 years was a black zipped up hood with the hood pulled in and the strings drawn tight. It was kind of like blocking off the world, because I was so sad and lonely and scared and defeated, and the only place that I was comfortable was at home, I was very fortunate to have a good home to come back to. And so for that to change so dramatically and to discover homeschooling, which we did for a year, and then I changed to a different middle school for the rest of 8th grade, and then going into high school. High school was okay my first year, but I was pretty bored. I was understimulated, and I just wasn't impressed with my peers. And so again, my parents, my family stepped in, and I got to go to Costa Rica, to Monteverde, which is a cloud forest reserve, and study in a Quaker Spanish-speaking school and spend all day, every day in the cloud forest for a semester my sophomore year of high school. And so those experiences, which I don't remember really how much of a say I had, except that I knew I wanted something different or needed something different, and my parents saw that and saw opportunity and made it happen, really opened up my eyes, and I got to rediscover sort of the childhood playfulness and delight in learning. Then would I ever have started juggling if I hadn't gone to Costa Rica? Probably not, right? Would I ever have started dancing if I didn't start juggling? Probably not. So if I were to point to a couple of specific points, it would be those two.
You talked about emotional resilience being one of your defining characteristics. So what makes you say that?
Oh, because what else is important? Like, we're going to get defeated. People we know and love are going to die. You're going to lose money. Your business is going to suffer. Challenge happens. I mean, you can cover your eyes and hunker down and pray, but challenge is still going to come your way. Mm-hmm. And so it's the ability to respond to challenge, right? And respond lovingly, not just with other people, but with yourself. Some of the most powerful people I've ever met in my life are parents of kids with autism who have come through the experience and accepted where their child is, still wanted more for their child, but come to being self-accepting of themselves and their child, right? And so even as their child is doing whatever they're doing, smearing feces on the wall or banging their head against a wall until it's bloody or anything, they practice the art of consistently showing up loving and delighted and energetic and playful. When I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with a number of these families in my early 20s, when I saw that, that's it. If you're there, you won, right? I wouldn't wish a child on autism on any given family that I know. Like, I'm grateful that my nephews are relatively neurotypical and healthy and doing well at, 9 weeks and 4 years old each. But those families have developed so much resilience. And it's like, if I could have a piece of that, that's the thing that I would wish for myself, for others.
Do you have a moment of your own personal emotional resilience that after you came through, you actually surprised yourself?
Oh, so many. I mean, the Café, right?
Oh, yeah. I feel like I'm in it right now, actually.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right? And don't get me wrong, there's sacrifices. I've taken 2 ballet classes in 8 weeks, whereas before starting the coffee shop, I was dancing ballet 6 days a week. There's sacrifices or choices to be made about any given opportunity we take on. No, absolutely, the Café. Every day there's another challenge/opportunity. And don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect. I've alienated people who I care about as a result of just being too stressed out or too in the weeds with the Café. I've not shown up to appointments on time. I've not spoken to my mother lovingly, whatever those aspects are. But the practice of it, right? Here is something I'm scared of, something I'm challenged by. Here's something that is not easy. Now let's try it. Oh, I was working too hard and I got 5 hours of sleep last night when I know I need 8. What can I do to resolve that tomorrow and try again? Because tomorrow's another day and you get to try over.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to people? We talked about purpose earlier. So people who are searching for that sense of purpose, or maybe they found it and we've talked a lot about challenge, but what advice would you give?
Work harder.
Work harder.
One of the characteristics, I was on the phone today we're actually bringing on 2 different interns for current projects. One videography intern and one for some social media work and design work for this upcoming event I'm putting on for 300 people in September called Responsive Conference. It's responsiveconference.com. And it's not a matter of whether the videography intern has extensive experience creating beautiful video and a strong artistic sense and the right tools and her own camera and all of this stuff. Can she learn that, right? Or do I have to chase her down and continue to remind her and call her up the night before and say, don't forget to bring your camera? Because I don't have time for that. I'm not going to do that, right? This person is not worth that investment for me right now. But if she has the grit and perseverance to show up, and when she's unsure, ask for help. And I told her this on the interview today. That's all she needs, right? The ability to learn, and what she has a lot of is time. Doesn't have a job this summer, in between freshman and sophomore years of college, excited to help, learned about Responsive Org and my conference, and said, this is a thing that I would like to be a part of. It's great, fantastic. I'm happy, I'm delighted, I'm thrilled to help you become a part of it if you do your share. And your share means showing up and looking for ways to help, doing work. I feel like millennials are regularly accused of feeling entitled, right? It's true, there's more information available to us at every given moment. Similarly, more distraction. Facebook and YouTube and Snapchat and Insta and all of these media coming our way constantly. House of Cards and Orange is the New Black and like good media, things that are well crafted, art that are designed to distract us, right? So I think the counteraction that I have to that is work harder, is be gritty, is that when you feel defeated, show up. When you don't know what to do, pick something and chase after it for a while. Seth Godin, I admire his writing a lot and his podcast interviews actually. But he talks about the dip, which is the challenging part through any given project. And he's like, yeah, if you get to the dip and you decide that this project isn't for you, quit and go find another one. But if you've decided that this project is yours, you get through the dip. You get through that hard point. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. It's that perseverance. There's the phrase, 90% of something is just showing up. And I've been amazed at the number of people who will say something like, I'll send you an email to follow up, and then you never get an email from them. Or I'll send you a calendar invite, or I'll give you a call. It's like, I'm fine if you don't want to send the calendar invite. I could send it myself, or I could call you, or we could just not talk. But don't say you're going to show up and then not do so. Unless you're satisfied with where you are, right? Unless you don't want the internship, unless you don't want the job, unless you don't want more success or more projects or more excitement or more passion in your life. But if you want more, say what you're going to do and then do it. And it's that simple.
Yeah, in my experience, I used to have a harder time with exactly what you're saying. I would say, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, and this. And it would just take a while and longer than I would want. And what I've started trying to do, especially probably in the last few years, has been exactly, if I say I'm going to email you, I am composing the email as I say that to you.
Right.
And then I send it as soon as I'm done. Or,
right.
Oh yeah, I'll send you the calendar invite. Because what I found was it was so easy for each of those little things to then add up. And then it would be a week and stuff got busy. It wasn't intentional.
Right.
But they can all get put off, and then it just becomes you're behind on everything, versus if you can go ahead and take care of it now.
Right.
And that's the David Allen book, Getting Things Done.
GTD, yeah.
Yeah, he has this great thing. It's basically like if it will take you, I think, like 5 minutes or less.
Do it now.
Do it now.
I see Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins on your shelf, and he has a great quote, which is, somebody will ask him, oh, we should get together sometime, or, oh, would you do such and such, or whatever. And if his answer is yes, he'll say, yes, is now a good time? Right? It's just like, yes, how about now? Okay, let's do it. Let's go. Rather than the, oh, I'd love to see you sometime. And is that a week from now? Is that 6 months from now? And then it more likely than not never happens.
Mm-hmm. A project without a deadline is a dream. Or something like that.
Nice. Yeah.
It gets you into this habit not only of productivity and performance, but it also builds resilience. Because you're teaching yourself that you are capable of even more than you imagined previously.
We are what we repeatedly do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So as we move into the final section of the conversation, we'd love to hear a little bit more about what gets you motivated. And you are a very physical person. You're always very present. What do you do when you wake up in the morning on an ideal day, let's say, to have this energy, man?
Yeah. I recently rewrote my About page, which is actually robinpzander.com/now, based on Derek Sivers' sort of, he has a now movement. It's like, what are you doing right now? What matters to you right now? Who are you right now? So I update that like once a month or so. My daily habits are still the same, but I haven't been doing them for the last 8 weeks. I haven't been going to ballet every single day. I haven't been going to Muay Thai every evening. I haven't been meditating every day. I haven't been doing my creative morning pages, right? 3 pages written freehand every morning. I haven't been getting 8 hours of sleep, right? There have been times in the last 8 weeks where I've missed a meal, and I don't miss meals. So Those would be all of the things that would be my ideal. And this is one of the most challenging things I've done to date, right? Mm-hmm. And I can see that based on what's not going easily, what has fallen by the wayside. Absolutely, I want to be exercising every day, but not so much that when my GM gets injured, I'm not willing to let go of that exercise in favor of stepping in to make sure the cafe runs effectively. The cafe, it turns out, is the higher priority right now, right? There will be a time when that won't be needed, and it won't be the highest priority. And hopefully that time will be next week, not 2 years from now.
Right.
Yeah, what do I do when I get up in the morning? Lately, make sure that there haven't been any fires at the cafe, that no one has died, that things are going smoothly, and then hopefully I can drink some tea and eat some breakfast.
So what is a motivational book or quote? You've kind of mentioned a couple in the conversation that has really affected your life.
The book that I've given away the most in the last couple of years is Josh Waitzkin's The Art of Learning. Josh is the character around whom the book and movie Searching for Bobby Fischer were based. He was called a chess prodigy, eventually dropped out of chess at a very, very high level and went into Tai Chi push hands, won at a national and world level at Tai Chi push hands several times, and then moved into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is actually how I found out about him. I tried Jiu-Jitsu for a while, and he was somebody I looked up to. But he writes from a high performance and a physical performer's perspective about the art of learning and achieving high levels of peak performance. It's an engaging narrative. He's a beautiful writer. He's just very sweet and humble about his prowess. Highly, highly recommend it. Other books, I mean, I could just look at your shelves and start listing off titles because I see so many that, like, Capital in the 21st Century, The Way of Kings, The Lean Startup, if you want to talk about entrepreneurship, The 4-Hour Work Week, totally changed my life in terms of thinking about other opportunities for work. Team of Teams by General Stanley McChrystal in thinking about the future of the work and the workforce and the changing world of work. There's so many incredible books out there. Depends on what somebody's interested in.
That's awesome.
Your show notes are going to have 10 books, recommended books.
I'm literally continuing to look at your shelves because, I mean...
we just need to post a picture of the bookshelf.
That's right. When you turn around, you'll see all the Seth Godin and the everything else. And Napoleon Hill.
Here we have Rework, which is just easy to read. It's from the founders of Basecamp and 37 Signals. I like it a lot. I also have, like, dog-eared all of the pages of it.
We're going to turn this into Robin's book review of my bookshelf right now.
Yeah,
so many to choose from. And you've got a Jack Cornfield, Wise Heart on the bottom. You're balancing it out.
I just started last night. I take a bath every night before going to bed. And this is actually one thing that I have not missed since starting the cafe. But I've been taking a hot bath before bed every night for more than 10 years. And in the bath I'll read, which is why I mentioned this. Everyone talks about their best ideas coming to them in the shower. My best ideas come to me in the bath. Just so you know. So if you get an email ever from me at like 11:30 at night with, oh my God, in the subject line and 10 pages of notes, it's almost certainly something that I was just iterating on in the bathtub.
It was a eureka moment.
Yeah, in the bath. But no, Time Enough for Love by Robert Heinlein. So Heinlein is known for Stranger in a Strange Land, which is also a great book. He wrote 15 or 20 books, all speculative fiction, speculative science fiction. The Life of Lazarus Long, I think, is the subject or the tagline of the book, Time Enough for Love. And it's following the track of this extremely long-lived character in a series of sort of retrospective stories. And there's so much in Heinlein's thinking, even though he wrote at a time where there was a lot of sexism and all of his strong characters are men and all of these components. I read Time Enough for Love probably once a year, and just having started it last night, I think of that as well. So that's another, again, fiction, but one I don't hear referred to very often that has absolutely changed my life. Tyler Cowen calls these kinds of books quake books, books that leave you really shaken and change your perspective in the world. So other books like that for me are definitely Tolkien, not just The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, but also Silmarillion, which is his history of Middle-earth. The whole Dune trilogy all the way through, Dune 7, but particularly, the first and second Dune books. My dad read to me as a kid. My whole family would sit on the couch. My parents still have the same couch, and we would sit and read. And I would sneak down after if they would continue reading, so that, my sister, who's 6 years older, would get more, and I would want it, so I would, come and listen at the corner. But that early exposure to reading, I read a lot, and it's very, very important.
Well, this has been a really awesome, amazing, all of the words, all of the great words, experience, really great. So please share with our audience the best way to find you and more about you.
So I have too many URLs right now.
What are your favorites? What are your favorites?
That's a millennial problem right there.
So probably the hub of all of my stuff can be found at www.robinpzander.com. Just the letter P and then Zander. You can also search for my name, Robin P. Zander, on Google. Will land you at most of my stuff. My podcast is a good way to find out the goings on. I just launched the Café website, so if you want to check it out.
Yeah.
And if you come and visit, maybe leave us a review on Yelp, because Yelp reviews make or break small businesses. It's robynscafesf.com. But if you're interested in exploring a lot of sort of these issues further, I'm putting on a lot of live events. Most of them are free. We have a 150-person event coming up this Saturday at Yammer, which will probably be too soon, but that's June 25th, 2016. But I'm putting on a lot of events on the future of work. We're putting on this big 300-person event in September, and there's just opportunities to engage, put on similar events, and meet like-minded people. So all of that can be found at responsive.org. Responsive, all spelled out, org.eventbrite.com. And that's a place to see a lot of the on-the-ground event organizing that I'm in the middle of.
Fantastic. Well, Robin, thank you so much for taking the time to come out to Berkeley and talk to us today. It's been so much fun, and we wish you all the success with your cafe and future exciting adventures.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the after show from Robin Zander's interview. It's amazing. He just left, and I can still feel his amazing energy in the room. We were fortunate enough to get to interview him in person, and so I'm pretty excited to talk about my big takeaway from it. Are you ready to hear it?
I'm so ready.
So ready. My biggest takeaway, or something that he said that really reminded me of a moment that I come back to over and over again, was when we were talking about passion. And he said that I'm the kind of person whose passion persists for a few years and then can change. And he said, when somebody asked me, what are you going to be doing in 10 years? I would say, I don't know. And I found that incredibly validating, because that is exactly how I am in many ways, in that I really believe that for me personally, it's actually about believing that there are opportunities that the universe will lay before me that I can't possibly comprehend or anticipate at this moment. That is my belief system, and I am willing to say yes to an opportunity that feels absolutely right and wonderful at that moment, even if I wasn't planning for that opportunity. And the reason I bring this up is because it takes me back to a conversation that I had with a mentor in grad school. I was in grad school and the mentor was a professor, to rephrase that. And we were discussing my future and the job searching process. And he's an amazing, very straightforward, wise man, and I really appreciated that. And he asked me, if you go into an interview, what are you going to say when they asked, what will you be doing in 5 years? And I responded basically with what I just said. I was totally honest in that I don't know. But I said I don't know in the most eloquent, like mystical way possible, meaning that I follow my heart where it goes, because that's my journey and that's my belief system. And response was, yeah, you cannot say that in an interview. Like, you cannot say that in an interview.
So might be where we're going to be in 5 years. Well, the universe will guide me.
Yeah, I may not have been phrasing it at that particular time, because that was like 5 years ago or 4 years ago. But the point being, it was a belief that I've had for a long time. And actually, that was very good advice. It's not untrue that was good advice, because that's the reality. But it doesn't mean that that's any less true for me. The original answer I gave is very true to me, and I notice that it becomes more and more true for me as time goes on, because I've said yes to those things. I never would have anticipated. I couldn't have told him that I would be here having this after show with you, Blake Brandis, and talking to amazing people and sharing their amazing stories. I couldn't have anticipated that. So anyway, I'll sum it up because I could talk about that forever, I feel, but...
And you see that most in retrospective, like you're saying. You see it when you look back and say, if you would ask me at any given point along my life trajectory, where do I think I'll be in 4 years, 5 years? It's usually not where you actually ended up. In part because you didn't know, in part because things changed, in part because opportunities came up that you couldn't have imagined, and you just said yes. And I think that's really helpful to remember when sometimes we're in the moment of not knowing what's going to happen or what the future holds for us and feeling really stressed and uncertain and maybe anxious about, is it all going to be okay? What if it doesn't work out? And I think if you just look back, even when it hasn't worked out, quote unquote, in the past, like we thought it was going to, it's taken us in a direction that eventually got us to where we are today. And that's not the end of the story, but it's really cool. And we never could have predicted it, like you're saying.
Well, I think that's so funny that you're pointing those... I'm laughing at myself, actually, in this moment, because it's ironic to me that I have this belief that things are going to work out and be amazing in ways that I can't imagine, while simultaneously occasionally getting stuck in those loops of, like, what's going to happen? Like, those are totally conflicting mind states. That's so funny to me, and a really great realization. Thanks, Blake.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
That's what I'm here for. We do that. We do that for each other. That's great. So what about you? What was your big takeaway?
Ever since I heard the story of Robin starting the Café, and I did hear it when we were talking, I was on his podcast a couple months ago, and I'm so struck by the confidence that it took to say, I have this temporary problem, which is feeding people at this conference I'm hosting. And my solution to that is I'm actually going to purchase and run a cafe.
For this foreseeable future.
For the foreseeable future. Like, yeah. That seems like such a huge decision for me personally, and certainly for almost everyone I know. I mean, that's the kind of thing you plan for a year. You got a business plan, and you go to financial backers, and you have to look into insurance and regulations and staffing. And you've got to go through all the employment process and the sourcing. And he just said, 21 days, sure thing, we can pull it off. And I think that is such a beautiful millennial trait, not exclusively a millennial trait, but I think something that millennials have the tendency or ability to believe, which is that, you know what? No experience running a cafe or any kind of food service establishment before, but this sounds like an amazing adventure and something that's really fun, and he is going to go all in. And that's what he did, 8 weeks he's been running it, and he's all in, and like he said, it's kind of disrupted his daily routine a little bit, but that confidence is so remarkable to me and so inspiring, because I think, man, if this guy can look at that and say, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this happen, then what kind of things have I been holding myself back in my life when I could just look at it and say, all right, enough debating and trying to plan and worrying about, what's just do, go all out, like you said, work hard, like just run, yeah. And not to burn yourself out into the ground, but to be passionately, even though he might not love that terminology, but fully invested in what you're doing.
Yeah, he has the skills. Well, I would actually say he has the values that are going to help make him successful, because he has a value around emotional resilience. He has a value around high performance. He has a value around leadership and community and teamwork and
learning new things.
Yeah. So all of those things are going to really help propel him and make him successful. And for him to know himself well enough, like, it's the confidence you're mentioning, but it's a knowing that, what, I'm capable of doing this. My capacity is really great, because that's something that he's focused on. I mean, that's his interest, is high performance and capacity. So he's very intimately familiar with his capacity, which I'm actually learning more and more about myself, my own capacity. When he said, this is the hardest thing I've ever done to date, I was thinking, me too, about Motivational Millennial and, launching the company and the podcast. And it's interesting because he's also learning a little bit more about his capacity now in a different way. This is a whole nother gauntlet that he's learning about performance, because he said that he's gonna have to readjust because he kind of got thrown off. And it's like, this is kind of validating, because if somebody who is so totally into high performance is also getting shaken off there, all that to say, I've gotten shaken off my sort of morning routine as well over the past few months and starting this. It's like, this is just totally normal part of the process. Yeah. Self-compassion.
That's right. And you do need self-compassion, because it is the hardest thing to feel 100% responsible for the direction of your project or your business or whatever it is you're working on right now, because so often growing up, and very intentionally, we have guardrails. Teachers tell us to do this, parents tell us to do this, and even maybe the first few jobs, like bosses tell us to do this. But then when you get that project that is 100% you and directed by you, and certainly not controlled by you, because many things are out of our control.
Right. But control is an illusion.
Exactly. But certainly led and spearheaded by you, there is no right answer. And that's really scary sometimes and intimidating. And you do have to work hard, and it's disruptive. And so I think all of these pieces, like you've been saying, we've been experiencing with Motivational Millennial, and it's helpful to know that that's a normal part of the process. And it doesn't mean we're doing something wrong or we're incapable. It just means, okay, it's part of what you sign up for when you are trying to do something really meaningful and that you're directing yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to myself, in school, we're, like you said, guardrails, very clear expectations. Mm-hmm. You do X plus Y equals, you get an A. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm here going, how do I get an A in life? And it's not clear. Mm-hmm. And there's something that's frightening about that, but I would say something that's really exhilarating and empowering, and for me, absolutely worth it. I love it a lot. And, I'm getting that sense from Robin, that he's stressed at this moment, but he's still loving the experience from where he's at right now.
Yeah, they call you stress, right? It's the positive stress of doing something you really care about that's challenging. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to this conversation with Robin Zander, with the after show, and we're looking forward to talking with you on the next episode of the Motivational Millennial Podcast. Peace.
Bye. The Motivational Millennial Podcast is supported by Motivational Millennial Consulting Services. We work with organizations and teams to develop millennial leaders by understanding and tapping into millennial skills and values. In short, we strive to enrich organizations one millennial at a time. To learn more about our customized offerings, visit www.motivationalmillennial.com/consulting.
For show notes and upcoming guests, or to learn more about Coactive Coaching, the blog, and our other awesome offerings, visit motivationalmillennial.com. Keep in touch with us at facebook.com/motivationalmillennial.
We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email with your thoughts, comments, and suggestions at podcast@motivationalmillennial.com. And tell us who you might like to hear from, or if you think you or anyone you know would be good for the show.
The Motivational Millennial Podcast is edited by Christy Hostler and Team Podcast.
Our theme music was composed and performed by Blake Brandis.
Have a great week, Motivational Millennials!